It had all started on a cold autumn morning in Scotland. The cameras were barely set, the crew shuffling about with steaming cups of coffee, when Sean Fraser saw her for the first time. Clara Byrne walked onto the set, tall, graceful, with that rare kind of presence that seemed to silence even the noisiest room. Sean, already rehearsing lines in his head, froze for a fraction of a second. He'd read about her, of course, an Irish actress who had dazzled critics in arthouse films, someone whispered to be far too elegant, far too refined for a fantasy historical drama. But when she extended her hand with a warm, almost shy smile and said, "Hi, I'm Clara," he felt something unnameable click into place. From that moment on, they were inseparable. They rehearsed together late into the night, bouncing lines off each other, laughing at mistakes, improvising scenes that never made it into the final cut. The crew began to whisper about their chemistry, how natural it felt, how their eyes lingered a little too long, how every glance between them seemed to blur the line between fiction and reality. On screen, they were lovers. Off screen, they were friends, or perhaps something deeper, though neither dared to name it. The show was an unexpected hit. Within months, Sean and Clara went from struggling actors to global sensations. Their faces were plastered across magazines, their names trended worldwide. Fan conventions filled stadiums, where people traveled across continents just to catch a glimpse of them together. Everywhere they went, microphones were thrust in their faces. Ideographic period, what's the secret behind your chemistry? Are you two more than just co-stars? Do you ever fight? Sean would laugh it off, a boyish glint in his eyes. Clara, ever poised, would shake her head and say, "We're just very good friends. That's all." But the public didn't believe it. They didn't want to. To them, Sean and Clara weren't just actors, they were the embodiment of love itself, a fairy tale spun from history, passion, and destiny. And for a while, even Sean and Clara themselves began to believe it. But success, like fire, consumes everything if it burns too brightly. By the third season, the pressure was suffocating. Endless interviews, constant rumors, grueling shooting schedules. Fans dissected every photo, every interaction, every absence. If Sean attended an event without Clara, hashtags exploded with accusations. If Clara was seen speaking to another actor, gossip columns speculated about betrayal. Sean began to feel the weight first. He wanted to protect Clara, shield her from the madness, but his protectiveness sometimes came across as control. Clara, fiercely independent, pushed back. One night, after a 14-hour shoot, the two sat in his trailer. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Clara whispered, "I feel like I'm losing myself, Sean. Like the world doesn't see me anymore, they just see us." Sean reached for her hand. "Is that so bad?" She pulled away, her eyes glistening. "It is, if I disappear in the process." That was the first time Sean realized their bond, once so effortless, was beginning to strain. The crew still noticed how tender they were with each other. Sean always made sure Clara's chair was warm before she sat. Clara always remembered how he took his coffee, no sugar, just a splash of milk. Their laughter still filled the set, but when the cameras stopped rolling, so did their ease. They began to argue, quietly at first, then more openly. About the script, about the press, about how much of themselves they should give to the fans who demanded more than they could ever offer. One evening, after a particularly raw scene, Clara broke down in tears. "I can't keep doing this, Heughan. I love what we've built, but I can't breathe anymore." Heughan didn't know what to say. For the first time in years, words failed him. The first public sign that something was wrong came quietly, almost imperceptibly. At a press junket in Los Angeles, fans noticed that Heughan and Clara no longer sat as close together as before. Their interviews, once full of inside jokes and stolen glances, felt rehearsed now, like two actors reading lines. On social media, speculation exploded. "Are Heughan and Clara fighting?" wrote one fan account with 300,000 followers. "Why isn't she wearing his bracelet anymore?" asked another. Heughan tried to ignore it. He buried himself in his workouts, in charity work, in anything that could distract him from the ache in his chest. Clara, meanwhile, began taking on other projects, a small indie film in Ireland, a stage play in London. When they did meet on set again, they were professionals, perfect in front of the camera, polite off it. But the warmth, the spark that had once been effortless, now had to be summoned. It was late one night in Prague, where they were filming a pivotal scene. The director had gone home, the crew was packing up. Heughan found Clara sitting alone in a corner of the soundstage, scrolling through her phone with a distant look. "Clara," he said softly. She looked up. "Hey." Her voice was tired, but not unkind. "Are we okay?" he asked. The question hung heavy in the air, echoing off the cavernous walls. She hesitated, then set her phone down. "I don't know, Heughan. Sometimes I feel like we've become characters in someone else's story. Like the real us is gone." Heughan moved closer. "We're still us." Her eyes brimmed with tears. "Then why do I feel so alone?" The words hit him harder than any headline ever could. By the time season 4 premiered, the pressure had reached a breaking point. Their every move was dissected. A casual remark in an interview became fodder for 1,000 clickbait articles. Heughan's manager urged him to clarify the status. Clara's publicist begged her to stop feeding the rumors. Both refused. The less they spoke, the louder the speculation became. Friends tried to intervene. "You two need to take a break," one co-star said gently. "Get some distance." But distance, it turned out, was exactly what they already had. It happened during a fan convention in New York. Thousands had gathered, lining up for hours to see their idols. Heughan and Clara sat on stage, microphones in hand, smiling as they answered questions. Then a fan asked, "Will you two always be this close?" Clara opened her mouth, but no words came out. She glanced at Heughan, who gave her a small, pained smile. Finally she said, "We'll always care for each other." The crowd erupted in applause, but Heughan felt something in his chest splinter. It was the way she'd said it, past tense hidden in future words, a quiet farewell dressed as reassurance. After the panel, They retreated backstage. Heughan tried to speak, but Clara shook her head. "Not now," she whispered, and walked away. Weeks later, filming wrapped for the season. Heughan sent Clara a text, "Can we talk?" She replied with a single line, "At the cafe on Regent Street, tomorrow at 11. They met in a quiet corner, away from cameras and fans. Heughan had rehearsed what he wanted to say. Apologies, promises, please. But when he saw her, all of it dissolved. Clara spoke first. "Heughan, I need space. We've been living in each other's pockets for years. I love what we had, but I need to find myself again." His throat tightened. "Are you saying this is it?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm saying I can't keep pretending we're okay. Not to the world, not to ourselves." For a moment, the cafe was silent except for the hiss of the espresso machine. Then Heughan reached across the table and took her hand. "You'll always have a part of me," he said quietly. She squeezed his fingers once, then let go. It felt like the end of a chapter neither had been ready to finish. Fans noticed their absence immediately. Joint interviews stopped. Behind-the-scenes photos vanished. Rumors turned into obituaries for a friendship that had once been a beacon of hope. But Heughan and Clara never spoke publicly about the rift. They posted polite birthday messages, congratulated each other on new projects. The world moved on, but those who had watched them from the beginning felt the loss like a personal heartbreak. In their own ways, Heughan and Clara carried on, each alone, each haunted by memories of laughter in late-night rehearsals, of whispered jokes between takes, of a time when the bond they shared felt unbreakable.